Hello and welcome to this special edition of Inside the Parliament. And I tell you why it's special, because it's taking another format today, and we have some dynamic youths with us here in the studio. We'll be talking about the youths and youth participation in politics, you may say in the political space of this country. The International Youth Day is a global event celebrated every August 12th to acknowledge the contributions of youth groups to world development. This year's theme, Youth Engagement for Global Action, seeks to highlight the ways in which the young people at the local, national and global levels are enriching national and multinational institutions and processes, as well as draw lessons from how their representation and engagement in formal institutional politics can be significantly enhanced, since local or national actors determine international politics. It is important to examine the role of the Nigerian youth in her political development as young people promoting politics with values in Nigeria. It is pertinent we take the front seats in the demand for the inclusion of the underrepresented group in a political space. The purpose of this discussion is that since the advent of democracy in Nigeria, it is a known fact that young people are not adequately represented. The signing into law of the Not Too Young to Run bill remains a beam of hope for the youth. It has opened the political space for youth participation and inclusiveness. Yet, there are still huge challenges facing the underrepresented group. Today, on Inside the Parliament, we will be examining the role of youth in the Nigeria political space from 1999 till date, assessing the level of inclusion of young people in the leadership position in political parties in the country, as well as selections and appointments in public offices, highlighting the challenges faced by young politicians, suggesting relevant solutions and recommendations, including tips on source of financing elections for young people in the country, demand for accountability, and analyze the role of young parliamentarians in opening up more political space for this underrepresented group at the National Assembly. And we have in the studio as our guest today, Dr. Joseph Ochogu, a governance and development expert. Dr. Ochogu, welcome to this special edition of Inside the Parliament.
Thanks a lot.
And we have Jude Feromi, civic and youth advocate. Feromi, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
And to join us online would be Honorable Taiwo Oluga, a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, and also a member of Young Parliamentarian Forum. We also have Honorable Chudi Moma, also a member of the House of Representatives. They'll both be joining us online. Apart from the young men and women that we have in the studio, you can see how lovely they look, and they are raring to go. They are ready to take the political space. And I guess if I ask them now, they would say all they need is a conducive environment for them to be able to pursue their aspirations. Am I right?
Yes.
Right.
All right, all of you, welcome to Inside the Parliament. We'll take a break now and then go into our discussion. All right, we are looking at the impact of youth engagement in Nigeria's political development since 1999. And we have, like I told you earlier, Dr. Joseph Ochogu, who is a government and development expert, and Jude Feromi, a civic and youth advocate, in the studio, as well as other young persons. And we also have some people who will be joining us online. But let me start with Dr. Joseph Ochogu. As a government development expert, how would you rate the participation of youths in Nigeria's political space since 1999?
Thank you very much, and good to be in the studio once again. And just to quickly emphasize that, first and foremost, the youth are the energy source of any society. And it is absolutely difficult to do without the youth population category in terms of development, in terms of any kind of thing you want to do in any society. So the youths, so the youths are the energy source of the society. They are the productive source of the society. And when we want to look at it in terms of the political angle, from 1999 till date, if you look at the age of people who have been in the parliament, who have been a governor, some who have been two-term governor, two-term members of the House of Rep, and some are in the Senate, and a whole lot of them, you discover that there is a significant category of them that went into politics at that age bracket. The National Youth Policy before put the age at 35. That has been reduced now to 28. You know, that is the 2019 National Youth Policy. So that is to say that the youth, to a very large extent, have been contributing, but in terms of significant position, occupying significant positions and making decisive impact in terms of the number compared to those who are above that age bracket, there is still more of them that we need in the political space. And you need new wine. You need new wine in a new keg. The world is evolving, and it's evolving at a very dynamic pace. You need this age category of people who can take risk in terms of decision making, who can be very adventurous in terms of innovation and development in the political space to help perhaps lesser number of older people. So in essence, what I'm saying is that we need more younger people in the political space, significant number of them.
So their participation has not been
Yes, in terms of their participation, not only participation, in terms of their inclusion. One thing is to have them as a voting category that they can vote. Another thing is access to decision making and power, which is one of the key things, you know, that is missing. We need large, significant number of the youth, Nigerian youth population in the power and decision making sector, you know, for us to have a complete turnaround. Young people who are actually angry because there are no good roads, young people who are angry because things are not working well, there is no power, young people who are angry because the infrastructure deficit is very high.
All right, Feromi, he has just highlighted some very key issues involving youth participation right now. He says young people who are angry at the situation of things, maybe what some people would say state of the nation.
Yeah.
Now, apart from young people who are angry, looking at capacity, do we have young people who have the capacity to make a difference in this age of always pinging, always being stuck with the social media critics who are not involved in the day-to-day affairs of the nation? Some of them can't even tell you what was on the news yesterday.
Thank you very much for that. I want to say, first of all, that I'm privileged to be here. And in a way to also answer your question, there are lots of young Nigerians who are much more capable that could be sitting here talking about us. So thank you very much, WFD, for inviting me. And secondly, to go to your question, young Nigerians are one of the most capable demographics that we've had since the history of the country today. If you count the number of officers that exist in Nigeria today, elected offices that exist in Nigeria today, they are not up to 2,000. The president, the 36 governors, the minister of the FCT, the 774 local government chairman, state assembly, then you count 360 lawmakers in the House of Representatives and 109 senators, right? Is it the case that we don't have up to 2,000 young people who can occupy those offices, who have the capacity to deliver on our country? I disagree. Young people in this country, with the current macroeconomic frameworks that we have shown over and over again that they can lead in the sectors of business, in entertainment, in policy, in fact. You look at the civil society organizations that we have today, right? These are led by young people. So the capacity to run an organization, to say, this is where we want our society to be, and this is what we need to do, and this is how we need to get there, that capacity exists in young Nigerians today. Do we have a Nigerian population that, like you said, are much more interested in Big Brother Nigeria or in social media events? Of course we do. Every country does. But do we have also young people who have the capacity to move our country from where we are right now to where we want to be? Absolutely we do. And that's my simple answer to that. One other thing to mention is that when the issue of capacity arises, right, most of the times people who raise, and it's a popular argument, if you look at it very well, the people who raise these arguments that young people do not have the capacity are usually trying to raise a counter-argument for why young people should not be included. And I'll give you an example, ma'am. The current, the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has a committee that has been put together to set up the medium-term expenditure framework for 2021-2025 and 2026-2030, right? That same committee will then plan do a plan for Nigeria for the year 2050, right? I and the organization I run have written to the Minister of State for National Planning and said, if you're making a plan for Nigeria in the year 2050, you should have young Nigerians who would actually live in that year, who will be alive in that year on board. Is it an issue of capacity here or representation or inclusion? So, I mean, you can make a guess, ma'am. By 2050, that's 30 years from now. I know, and everybody here knows some people who lead our country today who will not be alive in the year 2050. It's just a natural process.
So there is the need to include
Absolutely.
young people in the rolling plan for this nation.
Absolutely.
All right, in concrete terms, Feromi,
Yes, ma'am.
how can this be done? How can we get the youths involved? How can we recruit the youth, if I may put it that way? You know, we know the need. He has said, yes, there is the need. How do we bring them on board? To go straight to the point, there was a bill. I'm sure everybody knows about the Not Too Young to Run bill. But there was also a bill called the Yes We Can bill in the 8th Parliament. That was not passed. No, but there was a kind of merger to pass, like bring some bit of this, some bit of this.
Yes,
and then
into the Not Too Young to Run bill, yes. There is a clause in that bill that proposed that every ministry should have a youth representative on their board, right? That was not passed, unfortunately, because it couldn't go through in the constitutional amendment, right? That's one way that we can actively bring young people's voices on board. The ICPC, for example, has a requirement that the board has to contain at least a young Nigerian from anywhere in the country that is under 30 years of age. Now, for every board, and there are lots of boards in Nigeria today, in different ministries and departments and agencies, for every board that appears in this way, right, we can include this clause and say, bring in the young people's voices on board for running this organization. And I mean, Nigerian youths form the largest demography in our country. In fact, the way I say it is that if you are above 25 years of age in Nigeria, you are in a minority group. The young people under 25 form the large part of our country. Right? And that's one. Secondly, and this goes more into elective politics, right? And the way I like to position this is, we've done Not Too Young to Run bill to reduce the age of young people who can run for office, right? The next step is to reform our elections and to ensure that parties can no longer slam high fees of nomination forms, expression of interest forms to different offices. Because the average young person who wants to serve, who truly wants to serve, right, does not have the kind of money or 20 million naira to take a ticket from an APC or PDP.
And not all of them have sponsors either.
And not all of them have sponsors either. And the current electoral amendment bill in the floor of the Senate, sponsored by Senator Hagege and co-sponsored by Senator Abubakar Kyari, right, address these issues, right? Electoral reforms is a fundamental issue that we can adopt and tweak and bring into the laws of our country to ensure that young people can now be included on a leadership level. Dr. Ochogu said something very fundamental. He said it's not that young people have not been participating, right? Look at the ballot box snatching that we experienced in our elections. Old people don't do that, right? Look at the kind of violence, the people that fake as though they are police officers and go to police units to scatter everywhere. They are young people.
Negative use of the youth.
Negative use. So we need to reform our election process so that young people can be included and can run for office. And the current electoral amendment does that. There are a couple of reforms that we're also proposing to introduce into that make sure that young people can run for office. And then finally, which is the last phase, is after we've gotten electoral reforms done, we then need to go to political party reform. So that every young person can go into a political party that aligns with their ideologies and their aspirations for this country.
We know that, I think I want Feromi to answer this.
Okay.
We know that what we're talking about may not take place overnight.
Yes.
It will evolve with time.
Yes.
But within now and the time when it evolves, those key challenges that youths face,
Yes.
how do we begin to surmount them? Particularly that issue of monetization of the Nigerian polity.
Yes. Thank you very much, man. That's a profound question. Something that I take to my heart with all the passion I have for this country is that society does not change wholesale. It won't change. You won't have a bulk reform that changes society and turns Nigeria into paradise. And so there will be a time frame between when we gradually then ease into the ideal that we want to see. And what do we do in that time? It's like Dr. Ochogu has said, to organize, get young people together, but much more importantly, to advocate for change. You know, democracy is such a beautiful system of government that allows anybody, anywhere, to imagine that this is how we want our society to look like. And the way that we then shape the current society to look like that ideal society is by changing our laws. And to make an example of monetization in politics, the current electoral amendment bill that I mentioned earlier says that if you are going to contest for councillor, no party in Nigeria will be able to slam a fee of not more than 150,000 naira for all the forms that you're going to get, whether nomination forms, expression of interest forms, whatever it is, right? If you're running for the president, no party would be able to slam more than 10 million naira for nomination forms for that office. Now, that's a profound bill. Now, the laws, when it comes into effect, would open up the space for young people who truly want to serve and don't have lots of monies stashed somewhere or from a godfather to go and get nomination fees to run for office. Secondly, is aside advocating for this issue of monetization of politics, right? Young people then need to begin, because like you said, it's a gradual process. By the time we're changing the laws, we now have to start creating a high level of awareness amongst young people that the system is changing. We need the numbers. Because, like I said, I go back to the issue of democracy. Democracy says that whoever has the highest numbers will have their way, right? The people who have the lowest numbers will have their say, right? And in a way, young Nigerians already form a majority of the people in Nigeria. So if we agree that, irrespective of whatever party you are in, APC, PDP, ANN, YPP, whatever party you belong to, this is an issue in our own interest, right? And as young people, we would then advocate for a law that changes our current reality and then ensure that we're bringing our numbers to ensure the implementation. Because in Nigeria, another thing that you have is that there are lots of laws, right? And then nobody's implementing it and nobody's challenging the non-implementation of that law in court. When I walked into this building, and I've come to AIT a couple of times, right? But when I walked into AIT, I noticed something, which is that if you are on a wheelchair, right, you would find it easy to come into the building, right? Now, that's a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, right? You walk into some buildings, some government buildings, right? There's a law that says that this place should be accessible. This place should be accessible for people living with disability, right? But that is not done, and nobody is going to court to fight it because it's a violation of the law. So while young people, and this is why I agree with Dr. Chogu that we have our generation has a lot of organizing to do. We have to organize to put in the laws that shape the country and the society that we want in place. Then when those laws are now in place, we now have a duty to also organize to ensure the implementation. And by the time we go through this on a gradual basis, you see that our society is fast becoming the kind of country that we want it to be.
All right, we would like to take questions from the audience now.
Okay.
Who is starting for us? All right.
Thank you.
Identify yourself and Let them hear your question.
Thank you very much. Olumide Shobande is my name. It's like the older generations, the older people, have refused to get hold. Why the younger generation have actually refused to get up there? Because the element of getting hold is to relinquish power and disengage from active activities. And the element of getting older is to get involved with the responsibility that comes with getting on board. But the reverse is the case in our society.
So your question?
So please, the question is, what formula can we adopt to actually solve this equation, please?
Is it to get at the old ones so the young ones can come in, or to make the two of them stay side by side?
As a matter of fact, the older generation ought to take that vantage position of an elder statesman, advisory role.
All right.
Let me just, I think he just made a last statement which is connected to this question. And I was going to say one sharp thing. Our society have no choice. We're at a crossroad. The Boko Haram insurgency you see, the Niger Delta militants you hear about, and all the violence that you see are actually manifestations of disenchantment by younger generation. And that is why they become easy recruits for those things. He was talking about incremental changes and all that. And I think that it is the best of time, you know, for the society to quickly move to the incremental side, which is a much more functional approach, you know, towards changes. Because if you don't, you know, do peaceful change, you obviously will be what Claude Ake calls revolutionary pressure.
Okay.
There is already a pressure within the system.
We pray it doesn't get there.
Yes,
everything
but already
must be peaceful.
the signs and everything are there. So, but it is in the ruling elites, the Nigerian political elite must begin to consider these factors as quickly as they can, that it can no longer be business as usual.
Yeah.
The youth population category of this country must be factored into decision making, you know, to address some of these disenchantments and these pressures that are manifesting all around our society.
All right, you want to add quickly before we go to the next question? Okay, next question.
Thank you very much. My name is Sendedo Fan, and my question goes to Dr. Ochogo. So from the discussion we've been having here, it's obvious that there's a problem, which we know that, okay, youth are underrepresented in the government and in the decision-making process of the country. Now, I want to talk about the special group of people, because there are youths, but it feels like under youth, we still have a special group of people, which are women and people living with disabilities. Now, when you put youth generally, if youth are underrepresented in the government, what are the chances that, because already there's a discrimination against women and people living with disabilities. But for me, I think for a society to thrive, it has to be all-encompassing and all-inclusive. So if youth are underrepresented, what are even the chances that the women and the people living with disabilities are ever going to be part of the decision-making of this country? Or being ever be in position of course, decision-making or governance?
Yeah, I think there are two key things that have happened in Nigeria in the last couple of years that we must commend, which is first and foremost the Not Too Young to Run bill, which is now the young person's law, you know, which is a law, and then the persons with disability bill, you know, which has come in place, which he mentioned in terms of access, you know, to public buildings and all that. And like he rightly said, which I agree, there are quite a lot of laws, you know, but the implementation is a challenge. And I think that is where the role of advocacy comes in. And you remember, in the course of my earlier presentation, I have said that when we say youth, we are talking of male and female. So you look at, those are the vulnerable groups in any society in terms of youth, women, and children, when you look at it, but specifically women and children. Then when you talk about persons with disabilities or another, the same. In this country, we've never really been factoring them in terms of policy making and policy decision. But now that we have a law, I think that everybody, both those in government and those outside of government, must continue to advocate and push. As a matter of fact, even get some court rulings, you know, in respect of some of these abuses and all that, and then people will sit up. But if we just make laws and just sit back, people who are benefiting from the system will never move. They say change doesn't come easy. So people must push and pressure for certain good things to happen in society.
You want to add, Fenomi?
Yes, I want to basically just reinforce what he said. There is a book it's titled How to Change the World. And I read the story of an Indian in India about this disability act, that the law was in place. And you know what this man did, right? He went, in fact, it was like as though he wanted to make money off it, right? So he went to every public institution that was violating that law and then instituted a case against them in a court of law. He won. It was very difficult, right? But he won every case against this ministry. And when people then saw that this is what is happening, the next time you see this man in his wheelchair coming to your agency, you've already read it in the news, right? So the next thing after that, like 2 weeks, they've already put up the ramp. And gradually, in the gradual basis, that was how change began to happen for access to people with disability. And this is one strategy that young people in Nigeria have to run. When we advocate for the laws first, and then secondly, we go out as though we are on a fishing expedition, right, to identify cases where this law have been violated.
And take action.
Take the action and go to court.
All right. This is a special edition of Inside the Parliament, and we're looking at youth participation in Nigerian politics and in the Nigerian political space since 1999 to date, and of course with the intent to improve youth participation. We'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll bring more contributions. There are people who would be joining us online, like Honorable Tunde. He will be joining us online, as well as other participants out there. Stay with us. So welcome back to Inside the Parliament, this special edition with some youths in the studio, and of course talking about youth political participation in the Nigerian space. Of course, we are also narrowing it down to 1999 to date, because of course you would agree with me that those who were involved maybe in the 80s are older men today. So we have the young ones from 1999 to date. What has the Nigerian political space been able to offer the youths? That's what we're looking at. And we have joining us online, Honorable Tunde Olatunji, a member of the Osun State House of Assembly. Honorable Olatunji, we know you have walked through the battle line, so would like to know how you were able to surmount it and to get to where you are. I'm sure the youths want your tips.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of this program, and I must commend this initiative. I joined the State Assembly, in 2015, and I must say that as at that time I was the youngest member of the Parliament in my state. And I will tell you that.
How old were you then? How old were you?
Then I was just 35.
Okay.
And that gives me an experience which I would like to share. It's even for a young person in any office today, be it elective or you are even an appointed position, I tell you, and everybody has been talking. We've talked about the fact that it's expensive, and that's the truth. All over the world, politics is expensive. We can't do without it. For a black man to be in the White House for the first time, it was arguably one of the most expensive elections in the world as at then. That's to tell you that it's going to require huge resources. And so if we know that this will be a challenge to start with, it means youth must begin to be realistic in how they approach it. If I was in the banking sector before I moved into governance. Mm-hmm. And I tell you that nobody would graduate today and you want to suddenly become the MD of a bank, or you want to become a general manager. Of course. They are going to start an executive training. So I wonder why youth would not really want to focus in an approach that I call a bottom-up approach. Mm-hmm. How many of us who are graduates, who have capacity, are showing interest in the councillorship? Mm-hmm. How many of us are showing, interest in the local government, even without, you see, some of these things, it requires the experience, it requires resources. But you see a number of people who would attempt to suddenly want to be a senator. And you can bet that if some of them put in their effort to be at the state assembly, or they put in their effort to be the local government chairman, it will fly. And then they can grow. We must begin to see politics too as wanting to build a career. And so we would have to start where we have our strength. As long as we continue to approach it thinking that our unique selling points will be our young age, it can also work. And that is also the place of capacity. I've also been opportune to, be on platform with a number of other youths who are also, in one position or the other. And I tell you, the fact that some of us are young has not really been able to make a difference. It's not just about the age. It's about the difference because for every young person that has an opportunity and is unable to make a marked difference, we're actually shutting doors on thousands and millions of other youths who aspire eventually. And so again, is that we should not approach this issue from the divisive point of view. I've seen young people just come out of school, and the only thing he wants to tell you that he wants to suddenly become an elected officer somewhere. Some of them don't even take practical involvement in governance. I've seen a number of people even tutor and wanting to encourage people to be in governance, and I cannot even see them being part of any political party. It doesn't matter whether it's going to be the mainstream party. Some of these things are very key. If you have ever had my first attempt at attending a local ward meeting, I understood the challenge of Nigeria better. I understood the problem that we have in governance. Because if you attend a number of the local ward meetings, you'll be so amazed that you are likely going to be the most enlightened among them. The elites, the professionals, the technocrats, everybody stays away. Most of us stays away from active involvement, not only when you want to contest, but by being part of the process, so that we can make it better, so that we can contribute our own quota, so that we can add value, so that we can make the difference that is expected. If we really want to make that difference, we must start by being involved. So that as a youth, you may not want to aspire to an elective office, but if you are part of that party that is of your choice, if you are part of the local politics where you come from, you could make it to become the executives. You could make it to be part of those who are organizing, activities at the local ward meeting. With that, you begin to now prepare ground for that youth that will eventually come to fly. But youth come to aspire, but the decision-making organ of the party is populated by people who has no respect or the value of that particular youth. It will be very difficult for us to penetrate. And so I want to also see a situation where when youths are coming into these things, because I've seen it happen. You see someone who wants to come in. It's not about huge money. It's not about bringing some, but there are some basic things you want to do. If somebody who aspires to come into a particular office, you cannot even afford to print 500 posters. I tell you, it's very difficult for that person to get into to break in. Again, is that if he eventually breaks in, perhaps somebody, a money bag somewhere, has decided to bankroll that. When he gets eventually, it will not be the youth that you expect. It's going to be subject. So again, is that we must not see public office as a starting point for us as a young person. We must not see it as a place where we think we want to come and experiment our ideas. It should be such that as we are coming into it, so that we must have something to leverage on. They must see what we are bringing on board. This is who he was.
So that also means that money was not too much of a problem because you would have been able to save. But what about those who have not been able to save at all and they have what it takes to make a difference?
And then there will be that challenge there. Then again, is that funding is not only when somebody is coming with his own funds. It could also be that as youth, if we believe in one that is our own, we could actually make that difference. The voting strength of youth in every locality is the highest.
So youth can rally around themselves.
Because we are not strategic, because we are not organized, it makes it so difficult. But I tell you, there's a saying in this part of the country where I come from, that if you want somebody to help you to carry your load, you must first be seen to have ability to at least be able to lift it reasonably off the ground. Such that even if you are coming, it is not as if until people come together and they put money, that's when you can print poster, That is when you can, forms are in stages, even if you don't have the money, the ability to buy your party's form, the one that will at least make you show expression of interest should not be a problem. To be able to organize your youth to come together should not be a factor, because we cannot do without it. And that's why I said, approaching these things, there must be practical steps. The solutions we are adopting must be practical. It shouldn't be theoretical.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Tunde Olatunji. I'm sure you've been able to share quite a lot with the young ones here. If I may just summarize some of what you have said, I'm sure that Dr. Chogu and Feromi were following. You talked about starting from bottom up, not just coming in and the next thing you want to be a senator, you want to be the president like we saw in the last 2019 elections. You could start by being a councillor. You could start even from the ward level by being a strong participant at the ward level of your political party, and then from there you work your way up. And then you also talked about the more important in being for one to want to be part of the process and not just to just come in and you want to be a leader. You also said we shouldn't start, yes, with elective office. I guess I've also summarized that. You don't necessarily have to come and be a councillor, be a House of Assembly member. You know, that shouldn't be your immediate aspiration. You can work at the grassroots level, win the confidence of your community. And as you win the confidence of your community and the youths, you can now move up. You also said in terms of the monetary aspect, that youths can rally around one another. Youths can identify a particular youth that has what it takes and, of course, support him or her to get to a political office. And then you talked about we can maintain contact but refuse to be contaminated. In other words, for youths to make a difference in the political arena by not replicating the same problems that people are crying about now. You can get in there. Yes, you are in contact with all of them, but you refuse to be contaminated. You stand out. Dr. Ochogu, I think you may have something to add here.
I think what to add basically is that you don't get crushed into any kind of profession. You know, the same thing with politics. It's not something you just get crushed. There is this process they call either internship or pupillage, you know, pupil pharmacy or a houseman doctor, you know, and even if you go to a larger company, they call it trainee manager, just like the Honorable rightly said. So the point to make is that there must be a learning process for youth, and youth should be able to identify role models out there within which they can shadow, you know, either directly or remotely.
And they should start from their community.
And they should start from their community. But if you find yourself in Abuja, you can see a very good politician you really like, and then you can shadow him. Because there are a lot of people, you know, around politicians. So we must ensure that youths, you know, learn from good politicians who have the right values, you know, for them to play along.
All right, we have on the line now Honorable Taiwo Oluga, who is a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives. Honorable Taiwo, welcome to this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable. We would like you to share with the youths how you were able to surmount these immediate challenges. We have the challenge of who are you? Some people will say, who was your father? You're not from a family that is known politically and all of that. And then, of course, the monetary aspect. How were you able to surmount those? And, of course, get in as an elected office of your as an elected member of the House of Representatives?
Thank you very much. I remain Taiwo Oluga. I'm the member representing the entire people of Irewole Ayedade Ishokan, Federal Constituency in Osun State. And let me start first and foremost by thanking God Almighty that has given me the privilege, the opportunity. It's a rare one to represent my people at this point in time. And I want to say, just like you have rightly said, My father wasn't a politician. My father was a mobile police. He died at service, and my mother was a teacher, classroom teacher. And it's so interesting. Maybe because I was determined and I picked interest, genuine interest. I think what brought me into politics, I think in politics there are avenues to impact people positively, that you can use the office to impact as many people, to help many people as possible. So the inspiration comes that I can do it, I can go there, I can represent my people. And I want to thank God that when I started, it was like a play. I became a board member of rural development in my state, Osun State. Maybe some people were watching my activities. I didn't know my commitment. So I want the youth out there to be picking my words. Maybe commitment, I don't know. From there, I became a special advisor to the ex-governor of Osun, immediate past governor of the state of Osun, Governor Rauf Aregbesola, now the current Minister for Interior. I became special advisor on culture and tourism. Maybe some people were watching my commitment, my activities, my input too. Before the expiration of the second term in office, I got my ticket to be elected as member House of Representatives. And it was like, how will it come to pass? And we started the race, despite the challenges. I paid for my form, where rep members would pay for half of 7 million, which is 3 point something, the female zone by my party, Young Progressive Congress, slashed it into two. We paid half, the men paid full. And that, I want to say openly that it was a big challenge for so many people, because they couldn't lay hands on half of 3.8 million, about 1.7 million. By the time you had the transport, the ticket fare, your accommodation, staying overnight, coming back to the state, about 2 million. So what am I trying to say in essence is that really there has been an avenue on the paper for you to contest, for you to come on board. But the condition has not really been attractive, because I wonder if for example, a youth want to contest for presidency in Nigeria, you find out that it means they need about 45 million. 45 million is a big money in this our country, Nigeria, compared to others in developed countries and other developed countries. So what am I trying to say in essence is that it is a good time that we're talking about this, that youth are to come on board, but they are financially handicapped. I can say that. I know not all the youth or all the young people out there can afford that money. So that has been a major obstacle, and it needs to be addressed.
But you would agree with me, Honorable Oluga, that if you can make it, these young ones here can also make it. So what advice do you have for them? How can they overcome that impediment and also get to where you are?
I want to give an advice for them. Like, I'm a Yoruba person, and there's an adage that you will lift your load in the most heaviest part, then you can get support. So if the commitment is there, if the determination is there, if the youth are focused, truly I want to do this thing, and some people are out there, they can get help, they can get philanthropy, they can get quote and unquote that you may call, the media people may call Godfather or Godmother. Are you getting me?
Yes.
So I don't want us to see the challenge of financial hardship or getting financial or getting financial support as an obstacle. So I want to charge them that they should show commitment, they should be determined, they should be focused, and let's look outside the box, apart from what we can lay our hands on as youth or as individual or as a family. You know, one of the things that is really affecting us in this part of the country is that the way we practice our politics, our democracy, it is too expensive. I am telling you, it is too expensive.
All right.
When you go In example, if you go to, quickly let me say this, in US, you don't need to meet the person that you want to vote for one-on-one. All the person needs to do is to go online, tells you whatever he or she wants to do for you. That is, but here, by the time you start moving, you go in comfort, you make so many
unlike here, where you have to meet even the traditional rulers, meet the different youth groups, the different social groups.
My sister, they want immediate benefits. You must not talk the kind of policies you practice and kneel down or prostrate and leave the thing. You must stop something. All this thing is crazy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Taiwo Oluga, member Nigeria's House of Representatives. She has also shared with us the need to be involved in other aspects of endeavor before aspiring to political office. She said she started as a board member of the Rural Development Agency and then as a special advisor on culture and tourism. And of course, people were able to appreciate her work, her input, and that helped her during the elections. I hope you people are learning. We also have Honorable Obanikoro on the line. Honorable Obanikoro, how were you able to rally enough support as a young man? How were you able to rally enough support to ensure your election?
The method or the approach that we decided to use was a door-to-door style campaign, which simply meant that a lot of our time was spent on actually meeting people and singing to their ears directly. So we did a lot of door-to-door, gate-to-gate, car-to-car. So that's the method we used, and it worked because people did see me, and it wasn't just in the posters. They knew the person they were gonna vote for, and in one way or the other, they figured that this guy we're talking about, we have access to him. So those were the tactics that worked for me to get a lot of votes, and that goes without saying that money played a key role in the election as well. So money also helped me.
So how did you get your own money? How did you go about your fundraising so that they can learn?
Well, it was more of because this is a legislative arm of government. There's very little you can fundraising is a lot more harder as opposed to when you're running for the executive arm of government. For the executive arm of government, you're known to do and act, but for the legislative arm of government, you can't really bargain and say, oh, when I'm there, I'll do this, I'll do that. So it was just a personal touch where your friends, your uncles, your well-wishers, and those that just see your campaign and decided to say, you know what, I like this style of campaign, let me contribute. So those are the ways that we used, that money was raised.
Like some people who don't have uncles who are rich enough to give to them, what can they do?
Yeah, fundraising. You see, it also has to do with your network. The more you reach out to people, the more people would also extend their hands to you. And from the little experience that I have, it's not necessarily your uncles or those that are close to you that would actually, fund your campaign. A lot of passerbys just look at you and say, oh, I like this. Let me, contribute my quota to it, which is interesting and impressive because you wouldn't expect that, a stranger or a constituent would just be passing by and say, oh, I like this poster. I like this boss. I like this, shirt. I like his style of, walking. I like his boldness. There's so many things that attract a donor that we just decide to, say, okay, let me contribute to this movement.
Thank you so much, Honorable Obanikoro. I'm sure they have also learned from you. At least they are learning from those who have experienced it, those who have passed through the lane that they want to walk on. And of course, they would be able to know how to go about it when it comes to their own turn. Thank you so much for coming on today's special edition of Inside the Parliament. Yes, you had Honorable Onikoro. He was particularly specific about how youth can surmount this money pressure. And he actually made a lot of input, if I may put it that way, how you can get people to buy into your aspiration, whether it's relations, friends, people out there, you know, who, and he talked about door-to-door campaign, that it actually helped him a lot. So I hope you are learning. Please take very good notes. We will go there. We have a lot of people online who are waiting to contribute to this program. I have Chidima Wangu. Chidima, are you there? Are you ready? All right, it's clear, pending when we can connect with them. Can we take one or two questions from here? Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Okay, my name is Gloria Emmanuel. We know that women have as much rights as men to participate in politics if they wish to. But we see that women are really underrepresented in politics. Maybe due to the way that society has conditioned them to think that women's job is restricted to home alone. So how do we ensure that there's more participation of women in politics?
Fermi.
Okay, so there are very few radical ideas that I have when it comes to women participation.
Well, if it's too radical, Dr. Otogu will come in.
And one of them is that there is a cultural perception of the role of a woman in our society. We need to change that. And how do we change that? Whatever you appreciate increases, right? And whatever you condone decreases. So there needs to be a way to incentivize those people who support women in politics, or the women who are currently in politics, to be able to say that, look at this woman, she's an honorable, and put that image in
like
front
Honorable
of,
Taiwo Luga.
like Honorable Taiwo Luga, for example, who is from my state, to put that image in front of the Nigerian people and Nigerian women. Youths have a problem that people say young people had a problem, or the obstacles of young people. The same applies to women as well. And that's why you would see at times some women who would say, no, a woman is not supposed to be our leader, right? These kind of narratives are very, very, but when you begin to shape that cultural orientation to say, see, this, in fact, another point is, a successful woman, right, is not seen as a woman in politics, a woman political leader. We don't see that image of, say, okay, look at Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, for example. She's the chairman of First Bank. Like, everybody knows she's a successful woman. But in one corner of the average Nigerian's mind, you cannot just imagine that a successful woman is the woman who is leading other people in the state. And we need to change that. I think that's one fundamental issue that we can begin to change. The second one is that right from the cradle, you see young boys in secondary school talking about Obaseki and Governor Obaseki and Pastor Izeyamo, right? But when you go to young girls, what are they talking about? It is not particularly normal. We don't see it as normal for young girls to be discussing and that's where it begins, right? So by the time we need to put that culture of talking about society, talking about politics, and then, I mean, every human being, whether you're a male or female, right, you want your society to be better. And that is why the nudging to serve starts from, right? So if you want your society to be better, we need to get our young female to start saying that, or start thinking that I can actually run for office, or get appointed, or participate in advocacy, or do something in political for me.
Start at the ward level,
at that ward level, that community level. Today, the average young lady, when she's thinking, I want my society to be better, who am I going to support? Who is a guy to run for office? Or how can I use business to support and make my society better? Or much more importantly, go to the charity organizations. You see the majority of the charity organizations are led by who? Women. because that is the space that they fundamentally think that this is
Belongs
the
to
role
them.
and space for a woman. So we need to begin changing that conversation from cradle and say a young lady can talk about Governor Makeki and Pastor Iyamu in Edo State.
All right, thank you so much. We've been able to discuss quite a lot today. And of course, you know that this program would continue from time to time. Thank you so much for coming on the program. I guess we have to wrap it up here. Would like to thank those who have contributed, like Honorable Obanikoro. I see him still itching to say more. Oh, don't worry, Honorable Obanikoro. The next edition will make sure that you're there and you're able to tell us quite a lot. Honorable Taiwo Oluga, Member House of Representatives, thank you so much. And of course, our discussants in the studio, our panelists, Jude Feromi, Civic and Youth Advocate, and Dr. Joseph Ochogu, a Government and Development Expert. Of course, all of you who have come to be with us in the studio and to ask pertinent questions regarding the youths. Thank you for coming on the program. And of course, the next edition, we hope to have you again. And that's it on today's special edition of Inside the Parliament that has looked at youth participation in Nigerian politics, youth participation in the Nigerian political space from 1999 to date. I hope you young ones out there, you were able to get quite a lot from what we have discussed today. We'll be coming back very soon with another edition of the program. My name is Uju Eje. Stay with us and thanks for doing that.